volumes no longer matter. It's actually the outcomes which matter more. You can't have a one message which fits all kind of thing. You need to personalize messaging with every customer.
Very interesting. So rather, but despite that, I as a consumer, I often see the same messages. So what are they doing wrong?
Understand, what's your customer's preferred channel. Understand your customer behavior. Understand where your customer fits in which cohort is. I mean, right from whether he's a Gen Z, he's a millennial, he's a Gen X, or where does your customer belong? If you are sourcing it from an affiliate marketer or from some unknown service provider of database, then you don't know the authenticity of that data.
Welcome back, all of you, to yet another episode of the Revenue Spotlight series. Through certain episodes, we have seen that the conversation is mostly around not talking about in isolation about technology or marketing, but rather focus on strategies and platforms and ideas that have actually driven revenue outcomes for the business. We have talked to a lot of leaders about how they accelerate revenue. But one of the most important things over here is when we use channels, we use infrastructures. We haven't had a topic where, we're talking about the efficacy, the strategy behind even investing into the channels, while we talked about messaging and, the ICPs and what story narrative should come out. So I'm very excited to bring back that context into this series. It's absolute place here, especially when customer acquisition costs are rising, retention is becoming harder, marketing teams are under increasing pressure to deliver a measurable ROI. So what best? I have on for you Nikhil here. Nikhil, who currently leads the digital messaging at the growth business at Geo Platforms. Over the years, he has held leadership roles across companies such as Infobip, Vodafone, Value First Digital Media, the Coacher Tech. He has worked closely with enterprises on customer engagement. Nikhil, it's wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is all mine.
I would like to ask you, how have you seen this customer engagement evolve over the last 1 decade, let's say, especially with the rise of digital messaging platform? Just to put another idea over here, earlier brands used to focus heavily on, just reach and impressions, right? But today the focus seems to be shifting towards more of precision and conversation. What really triggered this shift, you think?
Well, according to me, what I have seen in last 1 decade is earlier there used to be very limited exposure on channels. Like you had only say SMS as a channel or email as a channel which was there. But in last decade or so, you see a lot of business messaging channels which have also scaled up. Like for example, WhatsApp is there, RCS is there. You have a lot of OEM based messaging services which are there. The app adoption is growing pretty much. So you have a lot of in-app notifications which is coming. So enterprises now have a wide array of communication channels which they can utilize to reach out to their customers. And more importantly, earlier it was more from a blast perspective or just a connect perspective. Now, with this evolution, what happened is it's moved to more of conversations perspective, wherein you want to have meaningful conversations and that to real time with your customers. Earlier, enterprise were struggling to get the reach. Now, with all these channels available, the reach is there. Now, the enterprises, I feel, are struggling to have meaningful conversations.
Yes,
I think that's the most important part. Now, you know whom to reach out to and how to reach out to. But now the most important thing that the enterprise have to think about is what to communicate to those customers via these channels. There is a heavy play which is happening on personalization now, because you can't send a vanilla message which is, you can't have a one message which fits all kind of thing. You need to personalize messaging with every customer. And now I think volumes no longer matter. It's actually the outcomes which matter more. That's the thing which drives value to any enterprise.
Very interesting. So rather, but despite that, I as a consumer, I often see the same messages. So what are they doing wrong still? If what you're saying is true, where is the delay? What is happening? What are the brands still doing a mistake for?
There is a lot of inherent data which the brands can collect. Now, all these channels today in the digital ecosystem throw back a lot of analytics. The enterprise need to absorb all those analytics in terms of whether the customer is reading your message, whether the customer
Right.
is engaging with you, on which channel is the customer engaging. So
Right.
for a youngster, catching them on WhatsApp is more easier, but for someone who is a middle-aged
Mm.
working class person, for them probably email or an RCS will
Mm.
be something more relevant, because they tend to check their SMS inbox more frequently, because they do a lot of business transactions, or they keep getting a lot of
Yeah.
business messages,
Right.
or they get important emails, which is not the case with youngsters. So you need to also understand who is your customer,
Right.
where do they get categorized into, and accordingly, make shift your plans.
So you're saying what is happening is probably data and analytics is there, but probably brands have still not are using the full potential. Is it because of the lack of infra or a UI or ease of using, or is it lack of still being in the older generation of not adopting to what is still available?
Analytics is available. All these channels today throw back this analytics, and it's not just the channels throwing it back. There are a lot of platforms or intermediary service
Right.
provider like a Martech, or probably a
Yeah.
CDP platform, or a CRM player, or an
Mm.
aggregator. They also have a lot of golden data which gets
Okay.
processed, and which the enterprises can consume. Now
Right.
what I feel is, large organizations are on the verge of doing this, or probably they've already started doing it.
Okay.
A lot of mid-size organization or the long tail, they have the data, but they don't know how to process the data. So what I feel is, the data needs to go back into their system, probably go back to their CDP or a CRM, and then understand every customer's behavior, preferred channel, and all those things. It is a long process, but
Yeah.
there are specialists available in the market. There are service providers who actually do this,
Yeah.
and who guide the enterprises. Probably they can reach out to them and take their help and build their ecosystem differently.
Right. Let's go deeper. I hope it's not a challenge
Sure.
here, but it will help the audience to use it,
Mhm.
especially the CMOs and digital channel heads looking from a B2C or any business perspective who are watching this one. So tell me, we've always loved the idea about democratization. The larger companies could do a lot of things even 10 years back. But because of the way development is happening now with the surge of AI, maybe the emergence of a lot of smaller companies, service providers will become more prolific. There will be democratization of the ability for smaller companies to use. But tell me, what is it that you at Geo Platforms are offering?
We at Geo Platforms are trying to build a platform of platforms, wherein we are saying that business messaging today, as it's scaling, it's also getting slightly complicated,
Right.
because, say, for example, today a lot of people talk about AI, but
Right.
what AI is, say, even a Chat GPT is an AI for you,
Right. Right.
probably a Gemini is an AI for you,
Yeah.
probably a video creation tool is also an AI.
Right.
Today you have Meta AI also. So all the AI tools have different use case, different intents.
Right.
But how you put AI to use is also depending on what's your larger goal.
Right.
Say, for example, how we use AI is, we let the AI algorithms decide, what should the cohort be like for a
Right.
particular brand, for a particular use case with an X intent.
Hmm.
What should be the cohort like? Who should qualify in those cohorts? What kind of message should go to a customer? Probably should it be a rich card message? Should it be a carousel? Should it be a conversational two-way messaging? Then what should be the preferred channel?
Right.
What time of the day should the message go? What day of the week? What week
So,
of the
so it
month?
uses AI and study of all the audience that you have, the patterns, and then predicts and lets you take that final call while planning your message.
Exactly,
Is it?
exactly. Because see, what happens is, when you have data but you're not consuming data, and you apparently end up just doing a blast, it turns out to be a spam. It doesn't help the brand any which ways. And end of the day, when you look back and try to measure your cost of acquisition or look at ROIs, then everything is off the chart. And then you end up blaming probably the channel, or the team who was managing that, or the service provider, or the operator. You
Uh,
know, then it goes everywhere, because you're not sure of what went wrong, and more importantly, why it went wrong.
So two things I think we discussed very interestingly in this last discussion that we had in the last 1 minute. I think one thing is where you discussed a very important strategy of using cohorts or consumer behavior in order to have the right messaging. And at the same breath, I think we spoke something very important about privacy and preferences, and kind of protecting what really the consumer or the viewer wants to view. So for these two things, you're saying in the second part, how do you lay those governance layers? How are you protecting what we as consumers would like to see?
Okay, so from framework perspective, there are already a lot of rules that are laid by the regulatory bodies. Say, for example, today TRAI governs SMS as a platform. So there is a blockchain technology which ensures that what you receive messages from a registered sender only. You know. Which is the brand that is sending out the message to you and all that stuff. On business messaging today, when you get a link in SMS, what happens is, suppose you get a link from unknown number and you end up clicking it. It can be a phishing message also. But in business messaging today, on an OTT channel, what happens is when you get a link, there is also a web preview which is available. So in short, you can see what is this website exactly about. Plus, there are guardrails in terms of the business handles of the brands being registered also. I mean, unknown brand, which is not a registered brand, can't send out messages. What I also feel as an advantage with this business messaging as a channel today is you can create a use case specific handle also. Say, for example, you can have an X Bank insurance, an X Bank core banking, X Bank customer support. So you can create multiple handles. Which you can reach out to customers. Now the customer reading the name of the handle precisely know why am I being reached out to. And suppose if there is a loan promotion which is happening, and you're not interested in loans, you can unsubscribe from that handle. And now it's very easy because earlier, say on an SMS, it was more of a reactive mechanism wherein you have to go to DND, unsubscribe. It was very complicated. This is very proactive, wherein if you don't want to get an X set of messages, you just go to that handle and you just unsubscribe, or you just if you have not enrolled or opted in, you can just report it as a spam, or you have not subscribed for this till you're getting message. There are ways and means to raise a complaint also.
The privacy regulations are evolving, like you said. I'm wonderful to hear how you have made it technologically possible also, while the marketer doesn't lose the handle on it. But tell me the importance of the first party data. How should brands really think about building this responsible yet effective customer targeting strategy?
Well, we understand every brand has a KPI and every brand wants to grow and scale, and acquisition is top priority for almost all the brands. So what we have seen is a lot of brands end up sourcing third-party data, a lot of third-party data. Now, if you are sourcing it from an affiliate marketer or from some unknown service provider of database, then you don't know the authenticity of that data. There are service providers, say for example, how based on the AI technology that I spoke about, we do a lot of cohorting. There are a lot of signaling which is already available in the market. How can you consume those signals and build your cohorts is very important. If you have a service provider who actually does this, someone like a geo platforms probably, then your life is easy because you're targeting the right set of customer. Say today a watch manufacturer, someone like a Tissot, if they are sending bulk messages out and the messages reach out to a 22-year-old young guy, probably he might not be in a position to buy. He might aspire to buy, but today he cannot become your customer because of the watch being simply expensive, or not available very freely out in the market. But if you know that, okay, you're sending out a message to a 40 to 50-year-old man who has budget to buy, who might have an interest, or likelihood of buying is high, and the chances of converting the customer is also high. Coming back to the point in terms of a lot of analytics being available, these analytics have to be attributed to your first party data also. If suppose you just have your first party data, customer bought something from you and you just gathered that data and kept in your repository or on your CDP platform. And every time you want to just send out messages to the customer on cross-sell, upsell, or some kind of promotion, it might not be useful, right?
It may not land well. You might lose a customer.
You might lose a customer. So a buying behavior pattern. So there are certain brands, a lot of quick commerce brands, or a lot of D2C brands, or even in Horeca, a lot of large food chains
Yeah.
are doing this, where they exactly know the customer ordering behavior.
And while you were talking, I used to wonder, when there is so much of e-com, what are these physical stores doing here? But precisely the reason, in order to have more first-party data, you want people to, in the plethora, either you become so good in analytics so that you send the right ad to the right person, and like, buying until the buying ticket, until you put a pay, or again you invest here. So it makes me think the amount of investment these CMOs and CROs have to do. Now tell me something, how do you suggest that, with this high cost of customer acquisition, how can this smarter engagement strategies actually help reduce these costs? There's physical cost, there is first party, there is second party, there's analytics, there is the mortar, brick and mortar still to be here. So much. So what tips or what guidelines do you have for the CMOs?
Well, one observation that we have had is most of the brands try to do everything at the same time.
Mm.
Say, for example, a large e-commerce brand or a D2C brand, sale which is coming up. We understand, okay, you want to communicate with customers and let most of your customers know about this, or let the larger audience know about this.
Yeah.
What they do is they send out the same content probably on an Instagram, on Facebook, on
Right.
probably business messaging channels like RCS, WhatsApp, SMS, email, and they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Plus you use some ATL channels like a newspaper ad or a
Yeah.
hoarding or a TV ad. So I'm so much bombarded with that information. Sometimes, if I'm not interested, just imagine the plight of a customer who not interested in this sale. Still,
Right.
he lands up seeing this almost everywhere. So what happens is your customer acquisition cost is bound to go up because you have invested in every channel,
Right.
right?
Right.
If you get say X number of customers by after doing all of this, your
Right.
cost is going to be so high because you spend across all channels. So I
Right.
think the
Yeah.
core message that we when I meet a lot of CMOs or CROs, one thing that I try to communicate is understand what's your customer's preferred channel, understand your customer behavior,
Hmm.
understand where your customer fits in which cohort is. I mean, right from whether he's a Gen Z, he's a millennial, he's a Gen X, or where does your customer belong? What every category of customer has a certain peculiar behavior. Yeah,
Right. Right.
everyone has a broader signal, and that applies to 99% of the customers in a particular cohort.
Right.
Try to stick to those behavior patterns or signals, and then choose your customers accordingly.
So when we are in B2B, no, we have a chance, a choice, because see, I may be in B2C, you do not have that choice because everybody is your consumer, and when you're making products or apparels or consumer goods, you have to sell. But in B2B, it becomes easy that way that we can choose our low hanging fruits first, then
Exactly.
the high hanging fruits, and then the heavy ones. You can have a short term and a long term strategy, and you can go in parts and pieces because your customers are not infinite. Okay,
Yeah.
but tell me, when this happens, there's always no, there'll always be a juggle. That do I choose? No, a brand could simply go, I'm going to sell only to Gen Z, or
Mhm.
then the market cohort reduces, so the A/B testing possibilities increases. You can spend more and more. Is this really possible in a real life world?
Probably a B2B brand where you don't have a differentiated offering. I mean, say
Hmm.
for example, today Microsoft. I mean,
Yeah.
the subscription or the license is going to be same irrespective of what age group you belong to or what category
Yeah.
of cohort you belong to. The
True.
product is still going to be the same, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what you can do is the way you present that.
Hmm.
Probably a student will need a Microsoft license for a different
Yeah.
intent, and a businessman might need it for a different intent.
True.
So the way
True.
it is to be presented to these people is what is important. Also, there is a lot of optimization that is needed, which I
Huh.
think, and when I
Yes.
say optimization, that optimization is purely based on patience.
Hmm.
Today,
Hmm.
what I've realized is the mid-level marketeers in an organization,
Yeah. Yeah.
probably a marketing manager or an assistant
Right.
manager, probably
Right.
an executionist for that
Right.
matter.
Right.
Um, what happens is they run a campaign. They look at outcomes. What are the CTRs? Okay, what are the click rates, engagement rates? How many customers are acquired? Okay, then they decide if this works or if this does not work, and then they jump to the next thing.
True.
Um, I mean, as Indians, I know this is in our blood. This is in our genes. We have always been a leapfrog era because. I love giving this example from a
Hmm.
technology evolution perspective. India was always at a tier three, tier four perspective
Mhm.
level earlier, wherein something came up in the US. By the time it reached India, it used to take 4, 5, 6 years.
True.
A classic case is pager. The moment pager entered India, by the time there were mobile phones coming out from the
Yeah,
US,
yeah,
and India said, "Okay, let's jump to mobile phones." So the pager era never lived its life.
right,
The adoption never happened. Then
right,
came the basic mobile phones. Okay, then gradually smartphones came. So the
right,
feature phones never lived their era.
right.
Uh, Adoption never happened, and then came the smartphone. Same is the behavior on apps. Same is the behavior on buying patterns. So on and
Yeah,
so forth. So
exciting, very exciting. That there is a it's a positive side of whatever we lost, but we gain
yeah,
faster on the faster
we
technology.
gain faster. I mean, now that gap is reducing because of the knowledge transfer being faster
Yeah.
in today's technology world.
Yes.
But I think patience is something which is very
So
important for a marketer.
that has two views, I feel, so exactly. See, we did talk about systems and platforms, but we'll again revisit there, as in we will revisit. But it raises a very important question of the way you hone your talent, whether you develop, and the confidence and the guidelines that you give them as a leader, let's say CMO. No, one aspect is whom do you hire. So what do we look at people who are going to further be executionist? What should we tell them? How should they approach this kind of a problem, or what should the skill sets be? But the second advice is also to the leadership. What is your suggestion to both the teams?
From a leadership perspective, I feel see a lot of things what an executionist does on the ground level depends on what gets drilled down. I mean, in terms of
Exactly.
if there's too much
My
of pressure
point.
on performance, if there is too much on delivery, if there is
Yes.
speed that is very important for them,
Right.
if timelines are short,
Yes.
based on what is getting drilled down, the executionist will behave accordingly.
Right.
So I think from a leadership perspective, it is important to understand how the ecosystem is today placed,
Right.
uh, who are the key players. Every
Right.
player has a subset to them, and also every player has a speciality.
Right.
What all technologies are you using?
Yes.
What all technology can you afford to use, or
Mhm.
rather, you should use to maybe improve your ROI or reduce your cost or whatever. Are you using those? That checks and balances have to be in place. Next is understanding the strength and weaknesses of every channel.
Yes.
One from a ecosystem perspective, and one from your organization perspective. What might work for another
Yeah.
brand in another industry might not work for you. Split your budgets equally across all channels. Give ample of time and have patience to see how an optimized channel will actually function.
Right.
Because once you understand what is working for you, it is very easy to replicate and scale.
Now we covered about the leadership. What advice or what would you tell the marketing execution team, the frontline people, what kind of skills or what kind of temperament they need to develop, given that the leadership gives them it on a plate or not,
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So the campaign managers or executionists or on ground
Yeah.
persons who manage the KPI, they tend to just copy paste a lot of things. People don't make
Hmm.
channel specific communications.
Right.
Okay, today I have text messages on SMS or email. Copy the same to probably an RCS, to a WhatsApp, to OEM messaging. Keep the content same irrespective of the channel and
Right.
reach. Also, what we see is the communication between the executionist and the service provider, or probably people from other layers, also is very broken,
Right. Right.
and it's in fractions. I mean, very rarely you will see a Marcon team of a brand
Hmm.
bring all the players. Not everyone will have all the layers with them,
Hmm.
but probably a CDP player or a Martech or a aggregator or an operator, bring them on one table and have a larger discussion. You don't see this happening as a
Hmm.
practice. While everyone wants business, and for business people will be available, but you don't
Right.
see this being done very commonly.
Right.
Probably a large brand will do it because they have larger goals, larger KPIs, complex KPIs, I would say.
Right.
But for it's not common.
Right.
So that is where you can sit and understand, and everyone will then say what can they do, what they can't do.
Right.
that
Right.
makes the marketer's life very easy because now he understands what all he has in front of him. All
Right.
the pieces of jigsaw puzzle are open in front of him. He has to just put them in
Very
place.
true. Do you see the pattern of more investment or a percentage raise in the kind of investment we are doing on channels? Do you see that rising as a marketing investment cost?
Yes and no, because now in the digital era, while you're spending more on digital channels,
Hmm.
but your spendings on your traditional channels, which is more like an ATL or other
Yeah.
BTL
Yeah.
channels, is lower. Now
Okay.
you see very less holdings of an FMCG product
Hmm.
or a D2C brand.
Hmm.
I mean, if you try to recollect, also you might end up seeing holdings of probably an Amazon Prime or a
Yeah.
Netflix, which is more
Yeah.
common, a Zomato, of the platform rather than of a product. You will see
Right. Right.
more of that. Um, you will see lesser newspaper inserts happening
Hmm.
now. No,
Hmm.
all
Yes.
those,
Yes. Yeah.
all those costs are being saved in a way,
Hmm.
in one way or the other, and that is now being pumped into digital ecosystem, is what I feel.
Okay.
So it's just moving from one pocket to the other. So you don't have to shell in more money, and digital ecosystem is relatively cheaper.
Huh.
Say
Okay.
today you want to reach out to a customer on an SMS, you might end up doing probably on a somewhere between an 8 paisa to a 10 paisa.
Okay.
uh, on a WhatsApp, you will end up doing somewhere between 75 to 80 paisa a message.
Okay.
On an CS, you might be able to do it probably between a 10 to 15 paisa, and
Right.
on email, it's lesser than 1 paisa. So that's how cheap it is. But the problem is, brands feel they're ending up spending more on this
Yeah.
because of all that summing up what we spoke about, not having cohorts, carpet bombing, spray painting, all that thing. So that's why the costs go up.
Got
Uh,
it.
because today, what is the smartphone penetration in India? It's probably about 750 million.
Right.
Uh, Now, if we want to reach out to 750 million, you don't want to reach out to all 750 million at one go, right? All
Mhm.
750 million can't be your customer. Otherwise, you would have
Right.
been, in a Fortune 500 brand by
Mhm.
now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, your customer base will be a subset of the entire
Mhm.
population. In
Right.
that also you will have gender specifications,
Yes. Yes.
community
Yes.
specifications,
Choose.
locality
Choose.
specifications, and all those things. So then you pick and choose and then target your customers accordingly. You end up saving a lot of money on that, is what I feel. But yeah, digital ecosystem is relatively cheaper,
Okay.
more easier to manage. While you also have to pay for services that you take, say from a Martech or probably from a
Yes.
aggregate. Those things come in, but these are more like a platform fee or a one-time fee that you pay.
Correct.
Uh,
Correct.
and Probably in year one or year two, it might look slightly expensive to you. But
Okay.
in the long run, probably when you are at year five and we look at all the investments that you made in year one,
Uh,
your year five customer acquisition cost or ROIs will be very different.
I agree, but it makes me think that technology also changes so fast, And while we are talking today, in 3 years' time, we may not be able to use the same tech. But so I don't. I mean that's fine. But what I'm trying to ask you is that okay, so just that because you've seen so many customer case studies, I understand the cost of ATL, BTL when compared to the cost of channel messaging, of course, is less. But in aggregates, when you have to invest in capex, you have to invest in your data AI models, you have to invest in your systems, you have to invest in buying those martech tools, your channels. Let's assume, having said that, do you see any just in terms of percentages, has the percentage R&D or the capex cost behind this martech increased over time?
It
What
is reduced
it is reduced?
because I'll tell you, 10 years back, there were a lot of requirements of having an on-prem solution. When you say an on-prem solution, on-premise solution, which is new, you need to have your servers, which you need to have all your hardware,
That
other
is true.
resources that is required. Today, everything is moved to cloud, and
Yeah.
it's very accessible, very secure, completely governed. So at an infra level, the costs
That
have gone
also
down.
has gone
You
down.
know.
Wonderful.
Second is at a manpower level, also the cost has gone down. What
Yes. Yes.
because what used to take two or three people to deliver, now it can be delivered by a single person.
Yes. Yes.
So that way, the costs have gone down. Also, the tools. There are a lot of tools. It depends on how you use those tools. There are
Right.
white label solutions which are very cheaper
Right.
which are available in the market. Just if you want to go and chase a brand, probably they might end up charging you more just for the same license what you can get at a fraction of
Then
cost
there
of
are
it.
options. There are always
There are a lot of
choices.
options which a brand can evaluate.
Oh, wonderful. That was the last part I was going to ask you, that given so many tools and softwares available, we often are lost. For example, when Technavic started doing this, it was solely for the reason that it was for the CIO community initially. Then we moved to marketers and techpreneurs. But so the CIOs, we have to ask them that, that we used to, somebody has to help them with the choice of solutions. And for that, you bring the solutions in front. So there was a series where we did only for techpreneurs. So companies come and talk about your product. Come and talk. And at the other end, you have the CIO speaking who tell what problem are they facing. So the ecosystem gets stronger. So there's a place for everybody. Also, as a company, like I would say here on your platform, when you talk about even your platform, there's a way the platform has automated everything. It's all inbuilt. But sometimes we believe even we can do a lot of things for our customers end to end. But we often start by sharing knowledge. If they're small still, let them do it manually. Let them do through smaller tools. Let them, when they raise to that scale, when they really can afford and need us, then we picture in. But until that time, education is so important.
Everyone today is trying to be an ultra human. Everyone wants to become a Superman. I mean, people have, I feel somehow lost the understanding that what I'm expert at. So there are a lot of platforms, there are a lot of players in the market. Say their specialty was today being a martech.
Yeah.
Now they want to become a channel supplier. Now they also want to become an AI supplier. They also want to become a conversational player. They want to build solution, and they are investing in R&D and trying to build a lot of things. But probably that's not the core domain of
Yeah.
their organization. The DNA is not that, right? When the brands say that I have umbrella of services offering
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
for us from a CRO perspective or from a CMO perspective, it becomes very difficult for them to make choices. It's not their fault,
Yes.
also, I would say,
Yeah.
because everyone tries to become an expert player in everything. From a CMO perspective, he doesn't know whom to choose.
Very right.
Um, he
Very
might sit across the table with 10 players offering the same pitch, offering the same product, offering the same services at the same price. Now he doesn't know who is the right player.
Very true, very true. Very interesting. I think we had a very holistic conversation where we touched upon every part of the ecosystem. But while I end the conversation, I would still, we talked about the 7 layers, 8 layers that exist. If a CMO is supposed to set up his martech or his technology stack, any guidelines or any suggestions how he should plan this, an end to end, what framework should he follow?
Um, well, I think as a brand, as an enterprise, what they should be clear about is their GTM strategy. That's the
Okay.
first one.
Right.
The GTM plan has to be very clear in terms of whom do I want to target, which channels I want to choose, or what is my budget, or all that stuff.
Okay.
Accordingly, your journey will start.
Hmm.
Probably, if you have all the know-how, all the resources built internally in an organization, like a large organization today has, you might not need all the 7 layers. You might need probably one or two specialists coming in.
Okay.
You because today you brands can't originate business messages by themselves. They need a connectivity touch point. So
Right.
probably an operator is someone who can be whom they can rely on, and rest everything is built in house. For brands who don't want to invest in R&D and development internally, they might take help of an aggregator layer. Today, there are a lot of global players in the market
Okay.
who offer services of being a martech plus a channel service provider.
Okay.
They're two in one. And plus the
Okay.
analytic layer also, they give you a lot of golden data also, which gets passed back.
One.
So you can take help of an operator plus an aggregator in that case.
Okay.
And for probably a startup or a D2C brand which wants to scale very fast, you might want to take help of a martech who is a specialist.
Yeah.
You might want to take help of an aggregator and an operator, and plus a conversational player who might
Yes.
use these channels in a better way.
Got
Now
it.
that you have connectivity, you have channels, you have aggregation services, but how do you consume this and how do you keep optimizing this? Probably a conversational player specializes in that, so you might want to take services from them as well. So I think
Right. The
first of all, we need to
conversation.
see internally what is their priority, what are their budgets and their goals, and accordingly they can choose their.
Understandable. Talking about conversational, using conversational bit, how are companies improvising on that, and how are they, leveraging on that particular platform or tool that we have?
To be very honest, it's still in a very nascent stage.
Hmm.
The adoption is very low. A lot of the communication that you still get is one way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, while there is today technology which is available to make it a two-way communication. Now,
Right.
when you say you want to make it a two-way communication, what is important is you can't have a static chatbot sitting on your channel where, suppose I come in and I try to talk, because you need to understand the sentiment, you need to understand the urgency, you need to understand the exact problem. Today NLP plays a big role because not everyone
Right.
has a good command on probably an English or a local native language on which
Right.
the app or
Yes.
the business
Yes.
messaging channel works.
Yes.
You need to have a robust model working around that.
Right.
And then I also feel is, what do you now? Okay, now I've started talking. Now the best thing for a sales guy is that, okay,
Keep.
today so imagine I'm a salesman of
Right.
90s era. I'm trying to sell something to a customer. How I used to sell, I used to go and meet someone, or I used
Right.
to do a door to door
Right.
promotion.
Right.
With a FaceTime. Today, digitally with two-way conversation, you okay, you get a FaceTime with the
Yeah.
customer. Okay. Now, what do you communicate in that probably 10 seconds or 15 seconds window? Because that's the attention span on a
Yeah.
digital channel today,
Very true. Very
not
true.
not beyond 10 seconds. So
Right.
what do you communicate in that 10 seconds is also important.
Mm.
And I think the brands have to invest in trying to build their journeys beautifully, meaningful journeys rather, I would say.
Right.
Because if that 10 seconds is something that you can capitalize on, I think you have a customer for life.
I think the customer journeys, that customized journeys that you spoke about is very important, I feel, or understanding them and setting them right. I think that will be the solution. So, at this last bit, I think I'm very thankful to you because we also gave an idea to people who are going to build in this year. So, I'm very excited for the whole ecosystem to rise and to the occasion, not just you, me as marketers or sellers, but also people who want to still build something meaningful. So that's amazing, Nikhil. I think we loved every aspect that you spoke about. What really stands out from this conversation is that messaging is no more longer about sending information in bulk or something. It is about a very strategic layer that connects data,
Mhm.
technology, your customers, and your inner structure, strength, and potential. I think all together only will really drive the real business outcome. If I would like to sum your discussion here.
Yeah, yeah, you have summed it up really well, and glad I could add value. If I'll be more than happy if people can have these takeaways and build something
Yeah.
which is helpful to them.
And helpful
And
to us back. Helpful to
yeah,
us.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Nikhil. Have a great day.
Thank you, Shita. Have a great day.